Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of our podcast, one which we're going to be talking about this TikTok ban. And it's getting a lot of traction in the news lately. And I think pretty much everything about it has been covered, including how pressing it is as a situation and the matter of urgency surrounding many aspects of the ban. But one thing that we would like to focus on today here at NorthStar, it's more from a SME and sole trader perspective, and that is what really happens when TikTok gets banned and the effects it has on small and medium enterprises and sole traders and people that use it as a tool of self-promotion in order to get views, to get visibility that they would otherwise not have. So that is what this episode is about, and I really hope you enjoy it. So let us dive right in. And why do we want to focus on this aspect of TikTok and small businesses and the visibility that has been afforded to these businesses and sole traders by TikTok? Well, the thing is, in this day and age, advertising, marketing, and promoting yourself is not only labor intensive, but it can be quite costly. And not everybody has the cash on hand availability to do that, or even the technical know-how. And TikTok kind of went over those things and straight to the person that was trying to create the content and was trying to promote a particular product or service. And that became very important because it opened a playing field to many, many actors that would otherwise almost be, disenfranchised, marginalized from being able to promote their work, their services or the products that they were creating. On a macro scale, we see that in 2023 alone, TikTok contributed around $24 billion to the US economy. And with a specific look at the economy in the United Kingdom, that was to the tune of just over £1 billion. So that contribution to the economy obviously came in the form of businesses being able to become creators and relying on TikTok as not only an important source of income, but as an important source of deriving income from being able to promote products and services. So now that this ban is looming and supposed to take effect today, as we're speaking, there's this question of, aside from the typical platforms of, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, what can be done to really make an SME or a sole trader be as successful as they were on TikTok and the others platforms, and can they compete? And the simple answer to that is no, not really. Because what made TikTok so unique was its algorithm, which was designed to reward and prioritize engagement, which obviously enormously benefited micro creators and provide space for these micro creators who would otherwise struggle with visibility on traditional platforms. So can the traditional quote unquote platforms compete with that? The answer is no. It's built into the system, and though no system is really perfect, no system truly affords that equality that we would like to see. But what TikTok did is by building it into its core, it made it a lot more available than any other system which was not designed to take that into consideration. So while traditional platforms favor users or accounts with large followings, micro businesses that have a limited following or a very niche following would really struggle to gain visibility and would almost be penalized to some extent because they're not big enough to be preferred or rewarded that amount of visibility. So in terms of scale, if you're going to use a scale as a benchmark for visibility or a requisite for visibility, then traditional platforms really don't help. And actually, it becomes a lot more of a hindrance for these SMEs and independent traders to use them successfully without obviously allocating a massive budget that can put you on the par with, larger companies. And then in that case, you would surround that with a larger SEO campaign and keywords and whatnot to boost it. But then that would obviously open your marketing strategy to various different fronts. And you'd have to have a very, very big budget, which just simply isn't realistic for these smaller and medium enterprises or sole traders. So what this ban comes down to is a complex situation that has very strong implications for SMEs and independent traders. And the first one, which we've touched upon, is to go back to traditional media, increase your budget and your ad spend, cast a wide net across different platforms using different tools, interlink them. So obviously casting a wide net is interlinked, and having the visibility on one platform or using one tool, try to boost the other one that boosts the other one, and have it come back full circle, and then try to have an overall boost. And that is with great investment. And I mean great because for SMEs and independent traders, it's not insignificant. Even $2,000-3,000 or pounds is a lot, especially when that is, a larger percentage of your budget than it would be on a large company, not to mention corporations. And the second alternative is obviously to find an alternative. And the alternative platforms, there's almost very few out there that are built on the same model that favors engagement over follow count or even amount of views. And this is where things get interesting, because we're seeing that the platforms that offer something similar, at least at the moment, so what people have switched to and are switching to as we speak, are either Chinese-based platforms such as Rednote, which you might know from the news, as they are now seen as taking in what is now called colloquially the TikTok refugees. And these platforms obviously offer an alternative. It's not exactly like TikTok, offer an alternative with some of the benefits that TikTok had, at least perceived at the moment. But what is in question is the long-term viability. And that is not very clear yet. So is it something that is going to see a mass adoption that is going to successfully replace TikTok, that's going to fill that role and to some extent allow SMEs and independent traders to carry on, business as usual as if they were on TikTok, just on another platform with a different name? Or is it something that's going to fizzle and die out after this, this bleep, this trend of jumping from TikTok to something else dies out? Or is there going to be another super app that comes in and replaces this in a couple of weeks' time? So, those are the two bad choices that SMEs, independent traders, are left with. I personally don't see a lot of smaller companies and independent businesses jumping at pouring their budgets into content creation and into other platforms at the moment. That is usually a decision that is made quite heavy-heartedly, and it takes really a lot of time and planning. So I don't see that shift happening quickly. I think the second option of trying to find an alternative, even if it means trying out different platforms over the coming weeks and months, is probably what most people are going to choose to do. And then from there, it'll see what actually remains, what is going to stay and stick. And that by then we'll see really how this whole TikTok ban is going to play out. And by then, what we will possibly see on this TikTok-esque landscape is what really has played out. So let's not also forget that tomorrow, January 20th, there's the inauguration of Donald Trump as the US president, new administration, new policies, new geopolitical outlook, especially in economic terms, that could present different opportunities for smaller businesses. So that remains to be seen how that plays out in the grander scheme of things. And, going back to the specifics of this landscape, there's a lot of things that could also change. There could be a softer ban where it's not really so much a pull the plug kind of scenario, but where there's limited usage reach that is allowed. There could be a sale or a merger, joint venture, which would allow the app to continue operating in the United States as it has now, perhaps with some policy changes on the app side. Or it could be that the ban itself takes on a new dimension and other countries follow suit. There's already been talk of the UK potentially banning TikTok as well, which would only compound the situation for smaller enterprises and sole traders. And all of this is really very much up in the air. But what is interesting is this dimension that, as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's not very talked about, and is how it helps businesses generate, money, generate sales, generate interest, and how these businesses essentially are going to be left a bit wondering, at least for the next couple of weeks or months, where the interest in their services and their products is going to be coming from. So here, obviously, the lesson to be learned and to be taken into consideration is that while we often talk at a macro level about many things, economic, political, cultural, and societal, we often neglect the effect that these things have on businesses, particularly SMEs, which is our focus. And it really ignores the advantages, as in this case, an app like TikTok would have for these companies, for these people, sole traders, for these ideas, these products, these services that otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity to gain access to such a large market. And that visibility would have come, if at all, at a cost of a great expense that not everybody is willing to make, and that if it doesn't provide a proper return on investment, can be very problematic for businesses. I would like to thank everybody for joining us today on this episode of the Pulse podcast, talking about the TikTok ban. As usual, we try to bring you something new and interesting every Sunday, and not necessarily the most conventional news and analysis on current trends. And it's always good food for thought. And we hope that you have a lovely weekend. And don't forget to visit us on our blog at The Pulse at NorthStar UK. Thank you for joining us, and have a great weekend.